In this second part of the video, I want to kind of explore the bias of biomimicry. What's beautiful about biomimicry is it gives us a competitive advantage. It recognizes that, in a time where we're faced with wicked challenges, we need bold and perhaps new thinking for us to address those challenges. We can't solve today's challenges with the thinking that created them. We need to think outside of the box, so to say. And so I like this quote that says, innovation is seeing what everybody else has seen and thinking what nobody else has thought. So when we look at this image as biomimicry specialists, we see time-tested genius. We see solar panels collecting energy. We see towers moving fluids. And that will give us a different lens for addressing some of these big challenges. The reason it's important is that we've created this glaring contrast between us and the natural environments. And the more that we create this contrast, the more we're going to create more pressures. Biomimicry is an important perspective because we've been building for centuries with these paradigms that separate us from nature. One of the ways that we've been doing this is that, unlike any other species, we've been able to harness fire. We've been able to harness stored energy to make new materials, to re-engineer our environments, and to ultimately push nature out, to control and dictate nature. The unfortunate reality is that the more we create this contrast between us and nature, there's a gradient that's being created. Think of if we all left the city today, what would naturally happen is nature would take over, meaning nature abhors gradients. Nature will dissipate that gradient. And so the more we separate ourselves, the more nature's trying to get in, and the more we require energy to fight that natural system. Think of the way we're fighting these storm events, or the way we have to build more robust engineering on riparian zones. Fighting nature is an expensive thing. And the more that we build outside of nature, the more expensive it's going to become, or the greater the collapse and release that's going to happen. And we're seeing that with climate change today. So how do we shift that rooted system is really about that next phase in this video. How do we move from this way of doing things that's perhaps outdated and move to more regenerative thinking? One thing I want to stop and kind of mention here is that there's a difference between biophilic design and biomimicry. Biophilia is becoming quite popular. And the key difference is that biophilic design is about bringing nature in, recognizing that we have an unconscious psychological and physiological response to nature. Our body likes seeing natural forms. It likes smelling natural things. It likes hearing, trickling water. And whether we like it or not, that improves our concentration, improves our heart rate, it improves our overall health and well-being. So biophilic design is more about bringing nature in and allowing our bodies to subconsciously respond to that, recognizing it improves our health and well-being. Biomimicry is more of a conscious integration. It's recognizing that nature does design and that we can learn from that design. So it's more of a mental exercise. Like I said, it's more of a lens for how to bridge the two worlds. I want to give you an example of how you can think of this lens. Think of a wall. What are the attributes of a good wall? For me, a wall is homogeneous, it's flat, it separates two worlds, you don't have to think about it. It's structurally robust, it can resist the natural environment, maintain constant temperatures and environments inside. It's predictable, it's controllable, it's efficient, and that's all good. But what if you think about a wall in nature? You might start to think of your skin, for example, and your skin has different qualities. It can breathe, it can shed, it can expand, it can sweat. It reacts to its environment. It still separates two environments. It maintains things internally. But I just like that metaphor of looking at a wall and seeing how nature could redefine it. Because imagine our walls could breathe or expand or shed or sweat. And the cool thing is that these functions that I'm identifying are actually coming into fruition. There are walls that can sweat. There are walls that can breathe, that can expand. And the more we explore these functions, the more and leverage existing technologies, the more efficient it's going to become and cost effective as well. The key to biomimicry is that we need to shift from this old understanding of nature to a current understanding of nature. The old view is we used to believe that nature was predictable, and it is to a point. We believe that our health and well-being was dependent upon infinite technological and economic growth. We believe that nature existed in a stable state so that we could always go back to it. If we disrupted it, it would go back, or we could restore it. And we recognize that nature is irreversible. It's heading on a single non-equilibrium. It can't go back to its original form. So some of these old views are being updated through new ecological thinking, and we need to bring that thinking into our design process and our designs as well. Instead of trying to resist and fight nature, what if we could blend with nature, recognizing that it's expensive to fight nature? What if we built self-organized systems like a forest? A forest doesn't all of a sudden show up. It evolves over time. And every kind of perturbation or thing that happens, the system kind of morphs and adjusts. It's continually dynamic. It's non-deterministic. We don't know where a forest is going to go. And what if we build cities, or it's like we allowed sort of self-organization? In nature, everything is safely failing, whereas we try to design for fail safe. And in that example, it's like I'm not proposing we design systems that fail, but maybe there's a way we could see it as more of adaptations and evolution. What if systems could evolve over time? So these are the thinkings that we need to bring into our approaches to push the paradigm of biomimicry, to challenge the way that it's been done. And we have a great resource called Life's Principles. And these are a set of principles that define how nature functions. So nature maintains integrity through self-renewal, for example. Nature uses only the energy of the sun. It uses life-friendly chemistry. This is the systems level biomimicry that I'm talking about. If we can get to this level where we're copying life's principles in our design, that's when we're going to start to see a harmonized integration of the built and natural environments, where we're truly functioning as efficiently as a forest. We're designing towers that are as efficient as a tree. And this is what I mean by shifting the lens. When we start to shift the paradigms that we've been kind of embodying, that we've been building with, and this is why it's so important to talk to Indigenous people who have a perception that is often different from what is being taught in engineering schools and architect schools. There's an element of spiritual connection to the natural world that could be helpful in how we think about designing with nature. But that goes with not just Indigenous people. Biomimicry works best when you have a diversity of perspectives, when you have multiple thinking coming together to disrupt the bias that might be the most dominant.